Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Denise Gary Show. We've been talking about the tremendous corruption associated with the Democratic Party and Democrats working in United States embassies overseas. I want to share with you, as the president continues to have to suffer through the impeachment process, that Ernst & Young has come out with a report citing that Ukraine is among the third or three most corrupt nations in the world. The corruption is so pervasive that in 2011, 68.8% of Ukrainian citizens reported they had to bribe a public official. The kind of corruption that the president is aware of is the same kind of corruption that the House of Representatives, in legislation that was passed in the House in 2014 called H.R. 4278. H.R. 4278 was a piece of legislation in which Congress actually encouraged the president, asking the president to crack down on corruption in Ukraine, asking the president, who was then President Barack Hussein Obama, asking Obama, encouraging Obama, language that was actually used in the legislation that was passed in the House, that's currently working to impeach the President of the United States, who loves this country so much that he's asking the Ukrainian government to cut back on the corruption, because after all, he knows it's Americans, American taxpayer dollars, that are going to help go into this country, that military weaponry will go into this country. Again, he understands the importance of acting as a buffer, as a break, as a barrier against the spread of Russian hegemony in the region. But I think it's important to note that legislation was passed by some of these same Democrats calling on a Democratic president to cut the kind, or work towards cutting the kind of corruption that existed specifically in the country of Ukraine. And I thought it was interesting, before I get to my guest today, I was looking into Dr. Fiona Hill's background. This is a woman that's been celebrated by the Democrats since her testimony in the impeachment proceedings last week. And it was incredible to find out this is a woman that worked for a billionaire that has been sponsoring radical, liberal, progressive groups around the world. She worked for somebody that was actually involved in supporting the Muslim Brotherhood efforts in Egypt and across the Middle East. In fact, so much so that the state of Israel is concerned about it and is now addressing the issue with the President of the United States. Back in February 2011, this billionaire, George Soros, penned a rare op-ed in the Washington Post advocating support for the Arab Spring. And we know what happened in the Arab Spring and the rise of Islamic terrorist groups and the rise of support that began to evolve out of Muslim Arab countries with respect to ISIS and the growth of ISIS to a 30,000 army-strong force that then Americans, special operators, Army, Navy, Marine Corps, Air Force, many Americans paid for the conquering, for the total elimination of ISIS, which still is a factor that we haven't been able to enjoy fully, because there's still ISIS forces that are working inside Iraq and working inside Syria, Libya, and other places in the Middle East. But I think it's incredible that Dr. Fiona Hill worked based on the research I've done. By the way, this isn't an article that all of you can read. It's in an Israeli newspaper, IsraelNationalNews.com. Apparently, Dr. Hill worked at Soros's Open Society Institute from 2000 to 2006 on Russian and European affairs. She then went on to work for a far-left organization called the Brookings Institute, and she furthermore worked with the author of the dossier by Christopher Steele. So this is a woman who worked to spy on the President of the United States. She was commissioned by opposition research firm Fusion GPS, paid for by Hillary Rodham Clinton's campaign and the Democratic National Committee. And somehow she went to work. H.R. McMaster worked with her in the NSC. She decided to resign in July of this year, and in November of this year, there she was, working to undermine the President of the United States of America. And when we think about the kind of corruption that the Democrats have fostered in U.S. embassies, I immediately thought of Benjamin Lagerstrom Irish. This is a man who has worked as an American writer, producer. He was a signatory to the Unity Agreement between the United States and the Dominican Republic, signed in 2017, the president's first year of office, that significantly improved diplomacy and the governing of that diplomacy in the region. He was considered for U.S. ambassador to the Dominican Republic. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to welcome Benjamin Lagerstrom Irish. Benjamin, welcome to the show today.
Hi, Denise. Thanks for having me on again. I really love coming on your show, and you really ran Fiona Hill through the barn there. I think it was very well deserved, and I think it's also important to point out that she was sued, if I'm correct, in the Cash Pytel versus political lawsuit that she was named as a defendant. As you were saying that and speaking about her, I pulled out a copy of that complaint, and I believe that she wasn't the only notable person working for these Democrats that was sued. I also see Adam Schiff is here on the defendant list as well. So there's a lot that's going to be coming out about Ms. Hill, and I'm glad to hear that you're right on top of it.
Thank you, sir. I thought it was interesting. I pulled this up as you were talking. I thought it was important for the audience to also know that she has taught, with respect to Dr. Hill, I thought it was interesting that during the impeachment process, she articulated that she thought it wasn't in anybody's national security interest for the president to make a request to a nation that's one of the most corrupt nations in the world. She felt that it was inappropriate for the president to actually ask them to work on ending corruption in that country. And she said, in effect, in her testimony, that President Trump was asking the president of Ukraine to be involved in a political errand. And as an American citizen, I don't know about you, Benjamin, but I took deep offense to that. I'm thinking, really? She thinks that the President of the United States is asking a foreign leader that's requesting U.S. taxpayer dollars to help support his country against Russia, and she thinks that that is a political errand. And I immediately thought about the fact that we have seen in many countries, and you're about ready to talk to us about the Dominican Republic and Latin American corruption and the embassies there. We have seen how individuals have taken money that has been given by the United States of America, these leaders in these countries, and used it to just enlarge their own bank accounts. And why wouldn't they?
Well, the Democrats are the worst. The Democrats are the worst offenders, and that's what's so amazing. The hypocrisy about this is they go after the Republicans and the president and the GOP with all these fake nonsense claims and allegations, and they're the absolute worst offenders, and they're not even smart enough to cover their tracks.
I thought it was interesting. When you look at Latin America, there's this communist, socialist, Islamist, narco-terrorist alliance. And I wanted you to speak to that, if you would, for just a little bit here today. Looking at your history, you were running for the ambassadorship to the Dominican Republic, as was Robin Bernstein. I want to say to you thank you, because apparently in that race, both of you ran a very professional race. You were above reproach. There was no mudslinging between you and a fellow Republican. And I just wanted to say thank you for that. That's a credit to you both. And I thought that was excellent. And in looking at the Dominican Republic and these Latin American countries, I wanted to know if you would talk to us about what Americans may not know in terms of what the Democrats in the United States Embassy in Santo Domingo in the Dominican Republic, what they're doing, because apparently supporters of Hillary Rodham Clinton have fed false information to the Dominican Republic to hurt the U.S. mission there as part of a deep state protest. And we were talking the other night, and you mentioned Alex Sanchez. Can you tell the audience who Alex Sanchez is? And I'm going to ask my producer to put up a photograph of the first photograph, photograph number 1, of Alex Sanchez. You mentioned that he's the head of the Alex Sanchez Foundation, a DNC delegate, and I guess he's been working with the Dominican Republic today, this Robin Bernstein. Can you speak to that, please, sir?
Well, I don't know as to the working relationship or if one exists between him and Robin Bernstein,
Okay.
but who
Thank
he
you.
does work for is Hillary Clinton, and who he does work for is Carolyn Maloney, the big Democrat up here in New York. And this is a perfect example, and Alex Sanchez is a perfect example of these Democrat infiltrators to the United States Republican Party, these people that work with and support communists. I mean, all you have to do is take a look on any of his websites or his Instagram or Facebook pages. I mean, the man quotes Jose Marte, Frida Kahlo, openly displays the Cuban flag. These are not the smartest of people, mind you, but nevertheless, this is a perfect example of the Democrat plan to infiltrate the Republican Party to throw elections. They like to put people in our party posing as Republicans, get them on local elections, run them as Republicans, and then spoil those campaigns on behalf of Democrats. So that's what Alex Sanchez's mission in the Dominican Republic is all about. And this goes back to the promotion of these NGOs, because as you're well aware, Denise, the Democrats operate in a total debt creation system. That's the name of the game for them. So they don't run legitimate businesses, and they have to work with these criminal organizations, and they have to work with these terror groups because they don't know how to make money the legitimate way. They don't believe in capitalism. What they believe in is socialism and communism, which are really one and the same. Nothing good either way.
Let's ask my producer. I want you to put up a photograph number 2 and then number 3, number 4. So in these photographs, I'm asking the producer to put out, in picture number 2, it looks like this is a picture, and we've talked about it, showing Alex Sanchez. Now, he's distributing communist education material to register voters in the Dominican Republic using U.S. taxpayer money. This is photo image number 2. Were you a witness to that, Benjamin?
Oh, yes. I was a witness to that because
Incredible.
Alex Sanchez is the son of a very famous Dominican entertainer who I managed for quite a period of time. He's the son of a man named Rafael Sanchez, who's better known to Dominican wrestling fans as Jack Veneno. So Sanchez had actually traveled through some parts of the Dominican Republic with me, and I experienced firsthand the attempts by him and these Democrats President Trump won his first election.
That's incredible.
So this is in February of 2017. Yes, no, and the thing is this is our taxpayer dollars
right.
that is going to this nonsense and this crap. And what they do is they fund these groups, these
NGOs?
These globalist sort of protest organizations, and they're paid for, with our money, actually. And that's something that you want to note about guys like George Soros and Hillary Clinton is they put all this money into all this illegal anti-American activity in these third world countries, and we're paying for it.
And the State Department, I understand, doesn't vet these NGOs. So here we're looking at a photo of this Alex Sanchez distributing supplies to a communist education program to get people to vote. I suppose, let's look at the next photo image. You said this shows taking up allegiance with and command of a foreign military, which of course is a criminal act. Pick photo number 3. So what are people looking at in this particular photo where it says, taking up allegiance with a foreign military? Can you talk to us about that, Benjamin, for just a moment?
Sure. Well, I think the picture is worth 1,000 words, and it's one of many, many photographs of the same type that are out there, not just with Alex Sanchez, but with other people like Prince Karim Abu Nana, who I think you're going to speak about shortly.
Yeah.
This is an example of the Democrats committing, on the record, the same type of crimes that they're falsely accusing President Trump of. Okay, so they're the worst offenders in this regard. And what they're doing is they're trying to take command of foreign governments and foreign militaries to be able to make money. Now, they make money in many different ways doing this. Of course, there's all the illegal acts that come with doing this, such as trafficking of drugs and guns and everything, because their hands are deep in that. Anyone who's ever been through San Juan, Puerto Rico knows and understands this. You go to the old San Juan and you sit across the street from the State Department in a coffee shop, and all of a sudden these liberals approach you to invite you to coffee shops and what have you to listen to the creeping communist propaganda. This is very well known that they're knee-deep into all of this illegal activity, but they also use it for quote-unquote legal purposes, like issuing bonds and working with hedge funds. So this is very lucrative. It's also how these countries survive. It's also debt creation, and it's also a tremendous national security threat to the United States of America.
Absolutely, in the Western Hemisphere.
It has to be nipped in the bud.
Right, it does, sir. And, we know that Iran is enlarging its footprint in the Western Hemisphere. We've seen it in Venezuela. We've seen it throughout South America, countries in Central America, and in Mexico. And, again,
Well, they do it by deep stating the embassies. They do it by deep stating our U.S. embassies. And they've done this in the Dominican Republic with Mary O'Rourke, who was the embassy warden, and they've done this in places like Guyana. I'm sure David Casavis, the Republican leader from New York, who wrote all these books about it, can tell you more about that. But they do this by deep stating our U.S. embassy. So we have a Democrat Party that is working against the United States people. They're working to hurt us.
And I wonder what the point is. I want to go quickly before we talk about Prince Karim Abu Nabay. Before we get to that character, I wanted you to share something about the Green March. Why did Alex Sanchez? I don't really understand why somebody like the Sanchez and Hillary Rodham Clinton and individuals within the Democratic Party would want to promote socialism and communism to begin with. I don't even understand that, but and maybe you can speak to that. But I wanted to ask, there was a Green March that went on in the Dominican Republic in support of the communist ideology, which was in effect instigating a threat against U.S. national security interests. why is Alex Sanchez promoting a green march on the streets of the Dominican Republic? Is that just all part of the way in which the Democratic Party seeks to gain the advantage over Republicans?
Well, it's also the way in which they seek to make money, and it's no coincidence. Okay, and this might be a little speculative, but it's really rooted, in the experience that I've had in dealing with these type of organizations down there in the Dominican Republic. Okay, this is how they make money. They make money by requesting U.S. aid and by requesting money from the United States to enhance security measures. So this is professional problem creation. This is them stepping up and creating a problem, bringing in these creeping communists. And I'll tell you a little bit more about my intervention on behalf of the Dominican people to save lives in just a moment. But they create these organizations the same way that they created the Yellow March in Venezuela, the Orange March in the Ukraine, France with the vests and protest and what have you. Mm-hmm. The same way they created these, they attempted to create the Green March, because if you bring the communist problem into the Dominican Republic, which is what they have done, well, then someone is required to step up and solve the problem. And they say, I have the solution, but we need all this money to take care of this situation. And that's what that's all about. And
okay.
That's why they get involved with these things in the first place. And they take these NGOs and they request money to solve the problems that they themselves
created.
Began.
Right. And
exactly.
And it's my understanding that you literally risked your life going into the Dominican Republic in an effort to end these protests by these Green March individuals. Is that correct? Can you tell us that story quickly?
Yes, it is correct, and I do it again because obviously my one life is not worth nearly as much as the 11 or 12 million people who are suffering in the Dominican Republic, who are going to bed at night with little more than a glass of water in their stomach. So I'm happy to go and to do those things. There was one of these Green March events in a place that's, they actually have like a desert area out there in the Dominican Republic, and you go through that, and it's incredibly hot. They were having a march in one of these kind of secluded areas called Azua, and that's about an hour outside of the capital city. So the night before, or the day before, there was a young man who was arrested. There was another person who was murdered in the capital in one of these protests with police that was a member of the Green March. And I decided to fly down there and to intervene in between these protesters and the police and military in Azua to prevent the blood from flowing through the streets
right.
down there.
Right.
I was able to do it successfully, and I did it by going and grabbing a hold of one of the event organizers, a woman named Maria Teresa Cabrera, who's one of the founders of the Green March, and her and her partner, her girlfriend, asked me to meet them the following evening in Santo Domingo, and I thought it was really interesting because what they did with Alex Sanchez there, obviously, was ask how can they raise money through the Republican Party to support these marches. And,
that's
my
incredible.
policy has always been that, we're not going to get involved in crap like that.
Yeah.
But that's how it works. And and while I was there, what I do want to note about is that I had discussions with a lot of the organizers and the speakers to try and get a feel more as to what they're doing, and they openly talked about being paid to put these events together by Clinton-funded NGOs in the Dominican Republic, and you had the Cubans and the Venezuelans, and they openly admitted that they were communists and socialists. And said, well, we need a better system than democracy. Well, that's just a race to the bottom. But I got to tell you something, Denise. All these socialist, communist, young people and all of that, they have a lot of fire in them. And that's a good thing to have a want and a desire for a change. But they're so incredibly confused.
Yes.
And what they're doing is they're working for people who are destroying the individual liberty of every person they come in contact with.
Absolutely.
And these are horrific situations. Yes. And I really would like to say to all of the young people who are subscribing to this ideology that they really do not understand or know anything about, I really urge them to look a lot deeper and also to look deeper inside themselves and think about who they really are. Because you don't want to be the type of person who blindly and ignorantly supports murderers and killers. You don't want to be that type of person.
Right, absolutely. As we wrap this segment up, tell us who this Prince Kareem is. I understand he tried to actually purchase the Green Party and that's tied to the Green March. Explain that to the audience, please.
Well, Prince Kareem Abu Nanaf, I believe is the proper saying of his name, is he's of Arab descent. I think they're from the UAE.
Uh-huh.
And he was involved in trying to secure bond deals through these hedge funds for port development and what have you in the Dominican Republic. He's kind of a wild figure. He has toyed with the idea of running for president. He tried to run for mayor in Santo Domingo, all of which he's not allowed to do and cannot do. And he tried to buy the Green Party to turn it into a political party so he could run for the presidency there, which never would have worked anyway,
right?
Because the Dominican Constitution forbids it. Mm-hmm. But these are the people who are bringing in all this illegal oil. Now, you have to ask yourself, why do they bring in oil from Iran and these places that OPEC bans from trading? Mm-hmm. And how do they get paid for that oil that comes in? Well, the answer is very simple. The Dominican government is not going to pay for this oil with cash, okay? Oil distributors don't have the money to pay for this petroleum, so what do? Well, the same boat that comes in and delivers all this oil brings a lot of guns and drugs right out, and all those guns and all those drugs wind up in places, like Iran and Afghanistan and Syria. So what you have is that backdoor funding of
gun running, gun running and drug distribution.
And all those guns are manufactured in Caracas, Venezuela. So that's the route, and that's the trade, and that's how they do it, and that's what these people are involved in. So Prince Kareem, upon information and belief, is a U.S. citizen. Okay? And here you have people like Alex Sanchez, who are U.S. citizens. And I want to note before we go off the air, you have this Alex Sanchez guy there taking all of these photographs, doing all this photo work of him in these luxurious situations with gold-plated silverware and these giant meals. I mean, they made me hungry taking a look at them, Denise. And this is a guy who's promoting socialism and communism and saying, well, I represent the poor people. We represent the poor people. This is one of Hillary Clinton's appointed DNC delegates doing this crap, and he's receiving social welfare here in New York. The hypocrisy is insane.
Yes,
never seen anything like it. But that's what these Democrats want to get on board with. That's what they want to represent. I want nothing to do with that. And I don't think anyone else does either.
Benjamin Lagerstrom Irish, thank you so much for this tremendous insight and analysis. I can't tell you, it's incredible, and the American people need to know this. The people in the Dominican Republic need to know it, and I certainly know the president loves the American people, loves this country, and certainly is going to be shocked. And I hope this message gets to the leadership in Washington. Benjamin, thank you so much for taking the time to get this message out today. We appreciate you. We appreciate all that you're doing. I hope you have a wonderful and blessed Thanksgiving.
Thank you too, Denise. God bless you. Have a happy Thanksgiving to you and all your listeners.
Thank you,
and,
sir.
Very happy and very thankful to be on your show.
Thank you,
Have a
sir.
nice day.
You too. Bye-bye. Ladies and gentlemen, we've got to go to a commercial break. I want to talk about a company called Anatase Products. Anatase Products right here in Kern County, and East Kern County is the hub of the space industry. Anatase Products is an organization that's run by a former Marine Corps officer, Scott Baker, a person who I hope the president meets one day. This is an individual that is providing the kinds of hardware that's needed for our major defense contractors and aerospace companies around the nation. Please contact Anatase Products, and again, you can do so. Go on your internet and check out Anatase, Anatase, Anatase Products in East Kern County. The president is Scott Baker, and tell him that you heard all about Anatase Products on the Denise Gary Show. Let's go to our Frugatti's commercial. Thank you, ladies.
I want to tell you about a place I love to go, Frugatti's Italian Restaurant. Very few locations here provide seating outside in front of a fabulous water fountain with an atmosphere that is reminiscent to me of eating outdoors in Venice. This is real Italian food by real Italians. And what makes it even more so is owner Ralph Frugoletti, who nearly a quarter century ago brought a wood fire oven from Milan, Italy to make, like his mother, fresh homemade bread and pizza. Moreover, Frugatti's restaurant offers you not only the very best in Southern Italian cooking, even importing the finest ingredients for authentic Italian food, including a fitness menu. After all, Ralph has represented the United States and Italy, competing in the Master Championship Games. He knows all the right food for good fitness, so check out the menu. After today's broadcast, run over to Frugatti's Italian Restaurant and Catering at 600 Coffee Road here in Bakersfield. And after a Friday, Saturday, or Sunday service, stop into Frugatti's for a great lunch. I'll see you there, and tell Mr. Ralph Frugoletti that Denise sent you. Salute. Buon appetito.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Denise Gary Show. I want to give out Anatase Products telephone number. It's 661 area code 822 6873, 661-822-6873. Scott Baker is the president. Again, they can do all kinds of things there at the at his company. He's a manufacturer of aircraft fasteners for, again, anything that flies, including those satellites that go around the world, and materials. He's got a materials testing laboratory, everything you need for your top secret or secret level jobs. Again, give Anatase Products a call. Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to wish all of you a wonderful Thanksgiving. I think about the pilgrims that came back in 1620, and the first Thanksgiving was in 1621, in which, together with Native Americans, the pilgrims from Great Britain celebrated and gave thanks to God for the abundance, for the food that they were able to enjoy there in that first Thanksgiving in November in 1621. Again, let's remember to tell the story of the importance of religious freedom in the United States of America that began in the New World in 1620. From people that had the guts and the courage to travel across the Atlantic Ocean in a little, what I would consider, they call it a ship, but it looks more like a boat to me, and managed to get here and thank God, gave God all the glory, all the thanks, and all the credit for being able to establish the kinds of tremendous freedom that all of us enjoy today. Ladies and gentlemen, again, happy Thanksgiving. Have a wonderful evening. We'll be right back with you tomorrow. Thank you.